My name is Dr. Kevin Pecca. I wanted to make a podcast that exposes people to the true miracles of life and health. All the guests on this show have been specially picked because they bring something positive to the world. They have some of the most amazing and inspiring life stories. These people have a passion for living, healing, and leaving the world better than they found it. There is something inside these people that made them keep fighting through all the tough times, even when people told them it was not possible. They carried on and made their lives beautiful again. And now they are sharing their experiences with the world. This is the Expect Miracles podcast. Enjoy the show. Today on the podcast, we have Dr. Ryan Dawson, who is a chiropractor out of Santa Barbara, and his company name is Chromatic Healing. Dr. Dawson is a wealth of knowledge in nutrition, anatomy, and physiology, and he is also studying the benefits that psychedelic drugs can have on depression, anxiety, and overall well-being. He has a phenomenal life story, and I'm very excited to have him on the podcast today. Please welcome Ryan Dawson. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing amazing, fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on, Kev. You are somebody that I have always been like super, just in touch with ever since we started school, and we hit it off right away. So it's not only good to be on your podcast, but it's great just to see you and be catching up, brother. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. I'm excited. So, Dr. Dawson, tell us a little bit about your life story. Where are you from?
Well, originally I grew up about an hour east of Kansas City, in a small little town called Warrensburg, Missouri, and I would not change that for anything. It was such a great place to grow up, very mystical. We lived out in the country and spent a lot of time running around, just getting my hands dirty and, just kind of being adventurous as much as I can. My childhood was very interesting in that our family is very close, and we went out, and my dad and I, we would go hunting, and we were very outdoorsy. So I've always had a really close connection with nature. I also have always been very in tune and interested more so in how the body works. And mostly that comes from my history of being in different athletics. I was always kind of looking for another edge. So that's what kind of pushed me into nutrition and performance. And then, that was just something that kind of blossomed into my life now. It was all a step-by-step process that led me all the way to chiropractic, brought me to California, and eventually opening up Chromatic Healing. So it's been a ride, but
well, you were a pretty big time baseball player, no? I know that's a tough question to answer, like you answering that for yourself, but I know you real deal.
I played with some great players, and I had the opportunity to be on some really good teams and play in some very competitive leagues. I did have a scholarship to pitch at the University of Missouri, so I actually played there for about a year, and then I transferred to the University of Central Missouri, and that's where I ended up getting my degree from. Played a few seasons there. I actually had to go through some adversity.
Yeah, because Tommy John, right?
Yeah, I in high school I threw a lot. I threw a lot growing up as a kid, and you can have really good mechanics. Biomechanics is something I've always liked to study, and just being as efficient as possible. And that way I could go deeper into games. So I was always working on the mechanics, but just I think, and that's one thing that I really like to implement whenever I'm talking to, younger athletes is this idea that you have to win the championship right now and everything's on the line and all this crazy stuff. It's really important to just have that experience as a kid and going out and competing and not getting too wrapped up in it to where, you're abusing your body. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't have gotten hurt at all in another way or in some other form. I'm not saying that at all, but I definitely want to use my perspective, proper throwing mechanics, and my history in baseball to help younger athletes down the road. And I have done that before I came to chiropractic school. I actually worked in Arizona as a performance specialist and rehab specialist. So we would take young youth athletes coming off of elbow strains, shoulder strains, doesn't matter if they had surgery or not. We try to implement a very well-rounded protocol based on physical therapy and therapeutic exercise and stretching and program design, in order to promote not only healthier mechanics and better performance, but resist and prevent injuries. So I learned a lot going through Tommy John surgery. It was not only grueling after 10 months of physical therapy, lots of hard work, lots of just days off, whenever you want to be out there with the teammates and getting after it and kind of watching everybody else do what you love, it's very hard. And it's hard to come back from because of that competitive mental edge that you always need, especially in baseball. And so
how was your arm physically after that? I mean, because mentally it's a completely different story, but like just physically, how did you feel?
Physically, I responded really well. I had the best surgeon in the world, Dr. James Andrews. We actually went down to Pensacola Beach, Florida, and he has his practice down there. And we have his practice down there, and we flew down, and he's a awesome guy, very down-to-earth guy. He works on some of the world-renowned greatest athletes. I think he did like Bo Jackson's hip, and I think he worked on Tiger Woods' knee. So I was in, that was kind of my claim to fame, and it was an honor meeting him, and he did a wonderful job on my surgery. And I came back, followed the regimen, the throwing program that he designed. And I actually, it takes about 12 months usually to come back from Tommy John, and everybody's body responds a little bit different, but I actually worked really hard and got back in 9 months. My arm responded really well. I got to go and play in a summer league called the Mink League, which is a wood bat league for college baseball players, where it's called Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas. And that
what year are you at this point?
That was my sophomore year in college. So that would have been 2009. My surgery was on May 19th, 2009. So
you had 2 years left after the surgery?
I did. I actually had more than that because I took a red shirt for the surgery. So I had that whole year off, really just to focus on the rehab and get ready for summer ball. I ended up coming back that summer and was one of the top 3 starters on the team. And, I was in good company. There was other guys on our team that actually had the opportunity to play professional ball. So we did it. It's fun because we all pushed each other, and it's also good to be back on the bump. I think my first game back, I threw 6 shutout innings, and, and it felt really good. So
were you able to finish out your career strong over there?
Yeah. I actually, I hit a certain point with baseball that everybody my whole life had kind of told me that this was what I was supposed to do, that, this was, I was going to be a professional baseball player. And, so that was kind of always the mindset I was trained in. I never really took a second to think about what else is out there. I didn't really care because I love baseball so much, but as the game goes on, as you continue to play, you face different adversities, surgery being one. I had different pitching coaches almost every single year that I was in college. That was a kind of a speed bump a little bit. And, as you move up in anything, there's going to be different politics and different things that, just kind of change your outlook on the innocence of the game. And for me, I still love the game. I have a lot of friends that still play, and I definitely want to help, younger kids acquire their dreams if that's what they want to do. But for me, after that surgery, I realized that there was more out there. A lot of that was having that time off to kind of clear my head and spend more time with myself. I got more into an alternative lifestyle because going through that surgery, I realized, I just had major surgery on my elbow, and what was that for? That was for a sport. It's like, if you ask any athlete, nowadays that's normal. But for me, I was just like, okay, what else is out there? I started to challenge status quo. I started to challenge just my own thoughts and just kind of, what societal views are. And and that was kind of the beginning of the road for me as far as shifting my perspective from a guy that was all about baseball, all about super straight, very hardworking, very focused. And I've definitely kept that part of myself. But I also let go of a lot of the control that comes with buying into what our day-to-day society says is what you're supposed to do. So one of the things, just for an example, is right when I had my surgery, I always wanted my own dog. So about 2 weeks after I had my surgery, I drove up to Iowa and picked up Bruin off this farm in Iowa. And he is my best buddy. He's been amazing. He actually and the reason I say it, that he's a little, I'm breaking stereotypes by getting a dog. He's a pit bull, and he doesn't know he's a pit bull. He's the sweetest dog in the world. And, so that was the first thing. Kind of, what is this pit bull thing? What's everybody so freaked out about? I wanted to kind of prove to myself and to, my family, friends, or whoever that really questioned it, that I can have a pit bull. It can be an awesome dog. And,
Definitely, dude.
Yeah, so kind of breaking that stereotype of that pit bulls are bad, and that was a big step for me. So getting to spend all that time with him, then I became, I wanted to be a good daddy for my puppy. So I would I would take him to the park every day. I would take him out to the park and spend a lot of time in nature. Every single day I would take him. And that was something I didn't realize, I thought I was just doing it for him. But over time, I realized that it was just as beneficial for me to go to have that time with him at the park as it was, for him to get his exercise in, just playing ball and everything. So that's whenever I really kind of, started thinking more, started to relax more, started to kind of implement new ideas into my life. And I actually tried cannabis for the first time. I was 20 years old, so I'm not really that type of guy that did any drugs or anything like that growing up in high school or anything. I was, like I said, I was pretty straight edge. That's because I was kind of always going off of what I was told. I thought I was going to, lose my mind or something at the time. And then I tried it, and I'm like, well, maybe there's more to this too. So then I had a pit bull, and then I also started trying cannabis and exchanging that for alcohol. And I don't want to demonize any drug, especially, alcohol, because I love having the occasional beer, sitting around the campfire with friends. And, as long as it's in a responsible setting and everybody's having a good time, I don't see a problem with that. So I don't want to demonize that at all. The only thing I don't like about it is how that's what our society has chosen to use as their primary source of escape. And so that was another thing, so I kind of stopped doing the baseball party house and all the things that come with being an athlete, all the things that come with being a kid and an undergrad, started to get out in nature more. I played with my dog, occasionally smoke here and there, and that really just kind of freed me up. And I was like, okay, so I started talking to my friends, what's the next step after baseball? Because, I'm not going to play forever, and I don't know if I want to play forever. I want to explore, I want to travel. And so I got my degree in kinesiology. And, a lot of my friends, we talked about, going somewhere, getting out of Warrensburg, because it's the type of place where everybody knows everybody, very small town. And, I remember you used to tell me you guys would all jump in the car and it'd take like 45 minutes to go to Starbucks, right? Yeah, man. We would carpool up to Chipotle. So, that was a big deal for us.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
So, yeah, it's great. I have some great friends there. I still, stay in contact with all of them almost on a daily basis. I talk to some of them. So it's great. The connections that I have there, I am truly thankful for. And I have some amazing, wonderful friends. I actually haven't been home in a couple of years, so I'd like to go back maybe this summer and go see everybody and fill them in on what's to come, because there's big things happening out here. So,
yeah. So you went to Missouri, you lived out in Arizona for a little bit, you did personal training, and then you ended up in California, right?
Yeah. So like I said, I got my degree in kinesiology, and I wanted to leave home. I wanted to get out, and one place that I wanted to go, as simple as this sounds, I wanted to go someplace where I could legally be a medical cannabis patient. I didn't want to break the law. I didn't want to be a part of some situation or some scenario where, it wasn't legitimate. And I knew that there was lots of movement going on out west. So I applied for a few jobs in Colorado, Arizona, California. I even sent one up to New York and Florida too, because I think they were kind of on the verge of acquiring their medicinal cannabis industry and their whole state program at that time. But I ended up getting a job in Arizona, starting off just to get me out there and just to pay the rent. I worked as a personal trainer at a really cool gym called Lifetime Fitness. If you've ever been to a Lifetime, I think they just added one down in Newport, actually. I think it was the first one in California, but they have a few of them in Phoenix. And it's a cool gym. So I went out there. I was like, I'm living the dream, because coming from Missouri and going out to Arizona, I was able to, I thought I was on vacation. I was able to go out to the pool in the middle of, January, February and just hang out. And I'm like, this is the life, So for a little while there, I was just kind of training people, going to the gym. I was happy with where I was at. And then after a few months of doing that, I'm like, I kind of, I love personal training, but I also, at that point in my life, I didn't, coming straight out of, school, coming straight out of being an athlete, I didn't really understand how people, basically why people needed motivation in order to take care of themselves. At that point in my life, it just came so natural to me to want to improve, my life, improve my physical attributes, my mental attributes.
So you just kind of got sick and tired of telling people, motivating people day after day after day?
Well, it wasn't the motivation. I always loved to motivate people. I tried to always bring the energy. But at that point, this was about 6 years ago. So at that point in my life, I just couldn't wrap my mind around it, why everybody doesn't have more interest in, what they're putting into their body. So I wanted to go back and I wanted to work with athletes again, because athletes you don't have to tell them why they need to work out. They already know that they need this, and they're open books usually. They'll do whatever you tell them as long as it's going to improve their performance. So I went and I got a little job working in Southern Phoenix, a place called FAST, which stands for Foothills Acceleration and Sports Training. We would do performance programs for athletes in the area. I actually was the strength and conditioning coach for Chandler High School, and take their football team, all their sports through, their training. And then we also would have people come in to our facility on site in Chandler and have them take them to their workouts in there as well. So I did that for about 6 months, and unfortunately, it was an amazing experience. I'm still good friends with Travis. He was my boss at the time. He's a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and he's very educated on performance and also nutrition. So he did a good job, and it was a great opportunity. But I wasn't able to work as many hours as I needed at the time, so I ended up starting looking up for another job. So I started to look for another job. I ended up getting this job in Scottsdale at this pretty nice facility. It's called the Center for Athletic Performance and Physical Therapy, and pretty big facility. It has an indoor basketball court. It has batting cages that drop down. There was a mound in there so that we could throw bullpens, big weight room, and then there was also this other side of it that was all physical therapy. So we had about 6 or 7 physical therapists there, and then I was a part of a staff of 3 strength conditioning specialists that worked on the performance side. But with my history of working in physical therapy, coming off my own surgery, I actually became the bridge man between the rehab side, so the physical therapy, and transitioning people over into their performance. So when say an athlete, we worked with a lot of soccer players. Yeah, we worked with a lot of soccer players. Soccer's huge out in Phoenix. And then obviously we had, a lot of the major league guys and professional guys that would come in because they have spring training. Most of the teams now are doing their spring training out around Phoenix. So whenever they would come in a couple weeks before they, would go into the spring training, they would come to our facility and start working out, and they would bring their programs in, and I would take them to their program. And I was kind of the baseball guy, so that was cool. I was a pitcher in college, but I also used to catch a lot. So I would catch guys' bullpens and
really?
and a couple of these guys, they would turn it loose, man. They would be throwing, 90 miles an hour. And, it's kind of nice. I'm glad they're pros because they were, throwing it right at the mid. I would just stick it right there. So I didn't have to work too hard in that sense, but
do you even have time to, I was thinking about the other day, do you have time to react to that? Someone throwing 100 miles, if they don't put it right where your glove is, how do you even react to that?
It just takes a lot of practice.
Repetition. But.
Yeah, I'd always kind of been good with my hands as far as playing baseball and exchanging and hand-eye coordination. So for me, it was just reaction time. But yeah, you don't have much time if they're kind of letting it go and turn it loose and. Get
one right to the jugular if you're not.
They might skip a couple at you too. They had some pretty gnarly curveballs and some sliders, and so it was all good though. It was fun, and I learned a lot. I actually put on a few camps for the high schools around there for not only baseball but speed and strength and agility. Right. So we did it all, and it was a great experience. But
so how did you transfer over to chiropractic then?
Exactly, man. So like I said, I'd always kind of had this alternative mindset. Even though I was implemented into, I'm not from a family of chiropractors. I, had one growing up, but, I didn't really go to see him that much. My mom went to see one, Dr. Alex Bedell in Warrensburg. He's an amazing guy, and my mom would go see him, once a week, just about for the whole time that we lived there. So, and she always swore by it. And she had a few back surgeries, that it just they never ended up really doing much for her. She never really responded well. So I was always kind of curious to what are the other strategies? What are the other ways that we can kind of approach these injuries, diseases, and what's the other side of this coin? And so I was led to alternative health, and not just chiropractic. It's more than that. Everything from nutrition to exercise, and just mostly it's lifestyle mentality.
Yeah. It's kind of sad how we have to say alternative healthcare because we now know that that's what people should be looking to first, pumping themselves with pills and everything. It's sad to see.
I totally agree. And I think a lot of people are realizing this. I think a lot of people have known this for a long time. People are looking for a different way. People are looking for a new way to stay healthy that doesn't require taking some sort of pharmaceutical every single day. I don't think that, you should depend on anything in your life. I take that back. I mean, we're all going to depend on some things. We're humans. But I think that you should try to be as out of body and objective as you can. Try to not become influenced, and because too much of anything is bad. And we see it day in and day out that, these prescription drugs get abused. So I had the opportunity to come to a crossroads because, the facility was great, but I also saw some things going on there regarding, insurance and just the mainstream kind of pharmaceutical medical money making machine, and transitioning all the way down to physical therapy. And it was all just like kind of a conveyor belt, and it wasn't like specialized, and it wasn't like about the person. There was a connection missing. And I knew that the connection that we have with each other, not only from doctor to patient, but just from person to person, can be one of the most healing things. So, whenever you're missing that connection, the mind and the body is very powerful. So I think that the better the setting, the better the energy, the vibes, and the people that are around you, you're only going to heal better, because the exercises and the nutrition, they go a long ways. But if your internal biochemistry is always a little off due to anxiety, due to depression, then that's going to result in less healing. It's just it's different. And it's really cool to see where everything's going, because like I said before, or you already stated, it's not alternative. And it should be the first thing that people go to: conservative health, diet, nutrition, exercise. I mean, there's tons of studies out there, Kev, about how, exercise is the number one thing for depression.
No, that's all it is.
It's the number one thing for depression. But the United States is the most sedentary country in the world, but we also prescribe the most pharmaceuticals for depression. Yeah. So it just doesn't take that much brain power and that much investigation to know that everything that people tell you and all the things that, we've kind of been taught along the way, it's not for the benefit of the individual. And, I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist or anything. I don't want to go down those roads, but at the same time, you have to be able to think for yourself. You have to be able to question not only yourself, but, the situation around you, question the authority around you. And I'm not saying be a troublemaker, but, just to be able to know what you're doing to yourself, know what you're putting in your body, know what you're exposing and subjecting yourself to, make your own decision. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with yourself, and you're the one that's influencing the people around you that you love. And you don't want to have some kind of negative energy or other impact distorting that or inhibiting that in any way. So I wanted to be my own boss, and that's the reason I applied to chiropractic school. I applied to Los Angeles College of Chiropractic, which is underneath the Southern California University of Health Sciences umbrella, and ended up getting accepted there. Shortly after, I moved out to California, and I always knew whenever I was a kid. I actually told this to my fourth grade best friend. His name was Austin. I told him I'm going to move to California one day. And, at the time I had no idea what I was talking about. I was in fourth grade, but somehow, I always felt drawn to California, and I think it's a launching pad for a lot of people. You know, there's obviously tons of people that move there after moving to Los Angeles. I feel like I could live anywhere in the world. You know, there's so much culture, so much availability to whatever you want to do, whether it's a different type of music, if you want to go get a different kind of food, meet different people, anything. You have the ability to do that as long as you're open and, have the means of getting out there and making yourself vulnerable and learning. Because anytime you're open and anytime that you can put yourself out there is an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to gain perspective. So, and that's what life is about, man. So
yeah, just being in California alone, just taking it all in, going to the beach every day,
right?
Sun's out every day, it completely just changes your mindset on almost every aspect of your life.
Exactly. And it's a catapult. It's exponential at that point, because once you go to the beach, you meet other people just like yourself. I met you and other people from all over the place that come to LA. And not only LA, we had the opportunity to come to a school where everybody there did not want, some of them had history of family chiropractors and things like that. But for the most part, everybody there was on the same page as far as where our society is at in healthcare and where we want to take it in the future, what legacy we want to leave behind for future generations. And that was cool because we all push each other every single day, you know, not only just, you know, in the science and the basic sciences, anatomy, physiology, hours and hours of studying that it takes to get through the school. So it was hard work. For anybody that says chiropractic school is not hard work, they have no idea what they're talking about. And it's just like anything else or any other education. You're going to get what you put into it. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And I tried to spend a lot of time those first year really just, you know, I'd already been to undergrad. I wanted to, and, you know, I kind of messed around. I was playing baseball. I wanted to use that doctorate program to sit down and be like, okay, I'm spending a lot of money on this. I'm going to devote a lot of time on this. I want to soak in as much as I can. So it's an amazing experience. Not only, like I said, not only come to California and being around other people that kind of already have that open mindset and having the beach and the nature. Like, I love to go hiking. I actually started hiking a lot in Arizona whenever I lived there because I didn't have much money. So I would, if I couldn't go out on the weekend, I would just find a cool hike to do and, you know, drive out there. It just cost me the gas to get there. So
yeah, that's one thing I never did in New Jersey. I never hiked, never camped. And then I get out to California, everybody's camping, hiking.
Yeah.
It's unreal, especially all the places you can go. You can go surfing in the morning and be snowboarding in the afternoon.
Exactly.
It's
man.
unreal.
Yeah.
But you were a big part of my just California experience alone because I did come out there open-minded and I met you, and you are pretty much one of the most open-minded people I've ever met. And you turned me on to a lot of things that I had no idea about, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, I'm grateful for you, man. So it goes right back at you. So definitely.
When did you start doing some research on psychedelic drugs or whatever, all that stuff? Because you grow up hearing horror stories about that stuff. You grow up hearing, it takes ice cream scoops out of your brain.
Right, yeah.
The trips, they last forever. You can be driving down the
flashbacks.
It's just and so I was always deathly afraid of that stuff. I never touched it in my entire life. I met you who did the research on it. And you knew what you were talking about, and I was kind of like, oh, wait, this sounds very interesting.
It takes a special type of person, even though millions and probably billions of people throughout history have used these sacraments to improve their life, and others have used them to abuse. But 5% of the people cause 95% of the problem, and that's just the way it is for most of the things in our society. So going back to getting a pit bull, going back to questioning cannabis, and, you know, alcohol and prescription drugs and surgery and chiropractic versus other modalities. It really wasn't that far of a stretch for me to be like, okay, there's got to be something else here, you know, whenever it comes to these illicit drugs. And I'm not talking about heroin, cocaine, or anything like that.
Right.
I'm strictly talking about the psychedelics that promote an expansion of consciousness and improvement.
And what drugs might those be?
Just to name a few off the top of my head, dimethyltryptamine, DMT is the spirit molecule. It's found in almost every single living organism on Earth. It's a very simple molecule, and it's actually what is is used during the ayahuasca sacraments down in South America that are becoming very, very popular. And a lot of people are going down there, and it's not a party drug. It's not something that you're going to do all the time. After you do it, you don't ever want to do it again, because it's hardcore. It's a cleanse for not only your body, but it's a cleanse for your mind, and allows you to get out of yourself for a second and kind of take
our own brain makes it, right? Like it is made within us.
That's true. There's different theories on where it's made, but one of them is the pineal gland. Dr. Rick Strassman has done a lot of research on DMT throughout the 90s, and that's one of his perspectives. So the DMT is a molecule that's released whenever you dream, during near-death experiences, and it plays a major role in our consciousness. So if they have elevated levels of DMT, maybe genetically your world is going to be a little bit more colorful, a little bit more psychedelic, and then therefore if you have lesser levels of DMT, sometimes your world can be a little bit grayer, a little bit more low, I guess you could say. And part of the whole debate behind fluoride is a heavy metal toxin, neurotoxin, is that it actually calcifies the pineal gland in the brain. So if you're doing that, you're going to be inhibiting that gland, you're going to be inhibiting the DMT pathways, and therefore making the person lower, making them more docile. And that's obviously a conspiracy theory. But
you can just get like excessive fluoride from what? Just drinking the tap water? Or?
Right. Yeah. So fluoride's in our tap water, and obviously it's in much of our, almost 90% of our toothpaste. You have to go and, and I ask people why, dentists, I ask people that work water and sewage, why do we have it in there? And it's a known neurotoxin. It's the same answer every time. It's to protect your teeth, but at the same time, I have different ways I can protect my teeth without ruining my brain or causing any, I'm not going to say the water ruins your brain or something, but let's go ahead and, do things that aren't going to inhibit you in any way. Let's do the things that's going to promote optimization of functionality in these pathways and of your total body. And therefore, if your brain's functioning at the highest frequencies, then your life is going to be that way. So that's one of them. Dimethyltryptamine is known as the spirit molecule. And if anyone hasn't seen the documentary on that, it's a very educational. There's also lots of research on dimethyltryptamine. So that's one of the psychedelics. And I like to relate that one first because, as you said, it is made naturally inside of us, and it coincides very well with our body whenever we ingest it. So whenever they're doing ayahuasca ceremonies down, and this is a ancient ritual, thousands of years, goes way back, and it's cool when you go down there and do it. I haven't had the opportunity to yet, but it's definitely on my agenda. I've done a lot of research on it, read a few books and watched documentaries, and I am just a nerd whenever it comes to kind of, trying to figure out what the next step is for me, and I want to know, everything about something before I do it. And what they do is they use, and how they came up with this, I have no idea. I mean, they're in the jungle, right? Whenever you mix two random plants, how did they know? Like, they took a tree bark that has dimethyltryptamine in it, and I don't remember the name of the exact species of the tree, but each, lots of trees have different levels of DMT, and then they'll take another plant that has a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which basically prevents the breakdown of DMT in your liver and allows the experience to prolong. So whenever you inhale DMT, the experience comes on almost immediately and can last about 15 minutes. And whenever you ingest it through the ayahuasca brew or the tea with the MAO inhibitor, it basically prolongs the experience. So they'll have, a 6-hour experience. They'll kind of go into a trance. And like I said, this is all done around a safety setting with the shamans. There's, drumming, there's chanting. It can be a tough experience for some people because a lot of people bury their demons and, those things get brought up. And the cool part about it is you get to face those from a different perspective than you always have. You're not facing it as a victim anymore. It's like you're able to kind of remove yourself from your own experience and look at it from a bird's eye view, or like I like to say, a divine view. We all have stuff that we're dealing with every single day. There's something new that's going on that we just hold on to. And sometimes it could be childhood things. Sometimes it could be financial. It could be, it's just anxiety in general. Anytime you aren't centered. Anytime you are not in the moment, because that's where people make their biggest jumps, is when they're in the moment. Whenever you have your biggest levels of catharsis and gains and perspective is when you're living in the moment. Whenever you get too outside of that, say you're anxious about what's to come or what you don't have or what you haven't acquired yet, maybe you are depressed about, something that happened to you or something that didn't work out. Those are two different time zones. You're not focusing on what's around you. If you focus on what's
present,
you're present, the ego-driven anxiety and depression, it tones itself down. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to completely go away, but I think looking at people's mentality and their outlook on life should be the primary prescription, and not SSRIs and Xanax and all these things that, people are taking for anxiety and depression. It's like, we're not that smart yet. Whenever we develop these drugs, it's not like they went and looked at the brain and found a certain part of the brain that, wasn't functioning, and then they went and developed a drug based on that. That would be pretty cool. What they did was develop the drugs and then tested them. Some of them already, some of them just got blasted through FDA approval. And, there's a lot of little loopholes that people can, whenever you have the financial means that you can kind of push your drugs through. And you can say, oh, it does this to the person, so we're going to use it for depression. And the SSRIs, it's just a blanket, man. It's what
mask.
They don't act in any specific mechanism that is going to be in a controlled fashion on the biochemical process. All they do is open up the floodgates and prevent the enzymes from breaking down serotonin. So basically you flood the brain in serotonin. And that's why people, when they're on them, they feel a little better. But the cool thing about the psychedelics like psilocybin coming from the magic mushroom is our body actually knows what to do with it, and it integrates it into a very natural way. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, if you look back, the genetics cross paths somewhere along the line, and serotonin is one of the most ancient neurotransmitters, and that's what these psychedelics act on, are the serotonin receptors. And, some of them act on other receptors as well, like dopamine or acetylcholine and the epinephrine and norepinephrine. But primarily, serotonin is the receptor and the pathway that's used in these psychedelic states. And it's awesome because serotonin, our body over time had to adapt. And so there's a lot of overlap. One neurotransmitter might have several different processes. So serotonin not only controls mood and our function of, how our outlook is, and it's a tryptamine, comes from the amino acid tryptophan. The whole pathway can lead to, is highly related to melatonin. So, and that is also made in the pineal gland. So melatonin and DMT and serotonin, they're all chemically structured very similarly. And that's what's cool. The SSRIs, they flood those synaptic clefts with, serotonin, but these psychedelics, they actually integrate themselves very specifically in a very controlled manner, and mechanically or biochemically have the mechanics to get in there and cause different changes in the brain. But first and foremost, you mentioned, kind of putting holes in your brain and things like that. I always thought the Swiss cheese analogy was funny because, if people actually think that you would still be alive with holes like that in your brain, then it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, So if you have holes in your brain, you're definitely not going to be alive. That kind of throws that one out the window. But what's cool about the psychedelics and the research behind them is they're a microscope. It's a microscope into ourselves, not only from a subjective standpoint, but from a scientific standpoint as well. It's allowing us, especially with the use of diagnostic imaging like functional MRIs and thermography and, PET scans, we're able to see which parts of the brain are more activated, which have become more inhibited during each drug experience. And then we relate that back to the patient or the person inside the machine, what their subjective experience is. So we can see on the screen, this part of the brain is lighting up, but they're also explaining that they're having these feelings at the same time. These mystical these mystical feelings. So it's allowing us to learn our own brains. At the same time, that patient is learning about themselves, or at least for a momentarily amount of time. If they're not learning about themselves, they're just stepping out of themselves for a second so they can kind of catch their breath mentally.
Definitely.
Even from like relating back to chiropractic, so many people, they don't realize what they're carrying with them physically until we work on them. I feel fine, because you get your nervous system becomes centralized, and you become numb almost to your daily postures. The body is very adaptive. You don't even realize that you're building these adhesions based on your daily postures. A lot of people, get the upper trap tightness just from sitting at work. Stress basically, can result in these muscles becoming overactive and hypertonic. So, and that kind of is cool because it relates back to serotonin. The part of the brain called the periaqueductal gray area is a pain gate pathway, and it's the primary neurotransmitter used for that pathway is also serotonin. So serotonin plays a big role in our body's ability to regulate pain pathways. So that's why depression and anxiety have such huge roles in how we feel. When we're depressed, it hurts. Like, it feels like you're hurt. And, same way whenever you're overly anxious, it almost feels overwhelming. And that's because, like I said before, there's so much overlap in these neurotransmitters. There's so much overlap in ourselves that we can't distinguish between mind and body, because it really is all connected biochemically and macromolecularly. The cells, their metabolism and everything, it all compilates together to give us. And then you add in all the bacteria that's in us, our microbiomes and all the stuff that we're covered in. I mean, it's crazy because serotonin is primarily found in the gut. And there's been a lot of different research on different probiotics and different bacteria that regulate gut health. And it's really cool. There's some really cool things coming out. And one of the research is for depression. They actually took mice that had kind of a dysbiotic gut, where like their microbiome in their gut was not very healthy based on the control and the food that they were giving them. And then the other mice were very healthy in the sense that their microbiome was very well regulated. They had been giving them probiotics, and they measured through chemical processes, blood chemistry, different levels of dopamine and different levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And they realized that the mice with the better microbiome actually had lower levels of cortisol. So that means they're just less stressed out. So we know that not only the food that we eat, but also the types of bacteria that we have in our gut play a big role in not only the serotonin production, but overall use of our food and how that is turned into energy. And it goes all the way back full circle. Like, if you don't have the energy, if you don't have the means to acquire the nutrients from what you're eating, if your food has any nutrients, because most of it today is not highly nutritious food. A lot of our food is grown in soil that's not just not well maintained.
Doesn't have the nutrients in it to grow it. Yeah,
it's been abused and over-farmed. And we don't have to talk about glyphosate and GMOs on this episode, but that definitely plays a huge role as well. And a quick note on that, actually, whenever I was in Arizona, I was working at the Center for Athletic Performance I told you guys about earlier. I was taking a football player through some ladder drills. We were working on agility. And, before then, I'd always been into nutrition, but I hadn't it hadn't changed my life the way it was about to. I'd eaten an apple about 20 minutes before I had my guy over, and we were taking him through drills. I started to feel a little hot, a little weird. And I was like, all right, man, go ahead and take 5. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. I walk into the bathroom, look in the mirror, and instantly I was like, holy cow, what's going on? Because my face was completely red. My eyes were swelling shut. My cheeks were swelling. I walked into my boss's office and looked at him. And he was like, holy cow, what's going on, man? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. And it's so crazy because my parents were actually out visiting me at that time, and they came to my work that day, and like they were waiting in the lobby to hang out with me. And I walk out to the lobby and I'm just blowing up like a balloon, man. So the facility wanted to call the ambulance, but there was a hospital right down the road. So my parents rushed me over to the hospital. I was sneezing every 2 seconds. Just back to back, boom, boom, boom. My eyes are swollen shut. My throat was swelling shut. My heart rate was picking up. I literally thought that I was going to die right there. And yeah, man, it was very scary. The only thing I feel like that kept me alive was my ability to remain calm. And that came from I mean, I don't
Was it tough to breathe too? Could you like not breathe that well?
It was like breathing through a straw while climbing Mount Everest. Like my throat was completely swollen shut almost, and my heart rate was picking up. So like it was very uncomfortable. And the only thing that kind of kept me in the moment and kind of kept me there, I feel like, was my history of taking psychedelic drugs and being able to kind of go into my meditation. I went into like a state of kind of just Zen, and I tried to just like remain calm. And I really feel like that saved my life, because it, when I got to the hospital, it still took about over an hour for the epinephrine to kick in, for the Benadryl to kick in. They gave me a couple other steroids, and come to find out, the whole reason that happened was because of a pesticide on the apple. So I was actually allergic to one of the pesticides on the apple.
Damn.
And from then on, I try to only eat organic, and I became much more in tune with what I was putting into my body. But not only that, but I was becoming more in tune with how things are grown and all the different processes that go into how food is made, how it's distributed, and also, getting out.
Damn, dude, that's a crazy story. I had no idea.
Yeah, getting out and
unreal.
Supporting local farmers, and it's all for the betterment of not only yourself, what you're eating, but also the environment, and it helps the right people that are pushing for that. So. Sorry to go off topic a little bit there, but that was
a good story. That
was a big thing for me then. And that was also what kind of pushed me to more of the alternative, I guess you could say, because, this is the mainstream way in which food is grown, and the whole, food industry is kind of being raped a little bit by this genetic farming. And I'm not saying that all of it is bad, but I definitely don't think that it should be the main source. So kind of going back full circle, talking about the gut health and how important that is, and kind of linking the destruction of the membrane, or the cell layer, the basal cell layer inside the gut, where like all the food is broken down.
Microbes live, yeah.
Yeah, so the microvilli in there, and basically their job is to pull in the nutrients of the food. What happens is, whenever food isn't broken down the way it's supposed to, whenever the molecules are too big and there's destruction to that membrane, so whenever there's just the molecules that aren't completely broken down yet, so say like proteins they should only be 2 or 3 amino acids big, some of them are 10 or 11 amino acids big and getting into the bloodstream because of gap junctions and destruction to the cell walls. That leads to food allergies. So whenever you have oversized molecules running into your bloodstream, because your intestine lining is destroyed, dude, and this is all called leaky gut syndrome. Yeah. And it's a highly researched topic right now, and it's also some of the basis of a lot of these autoimmune diseases is being stemmed back to the leaky gut, and it's starting to make more sense. Things like food allergies, for one. So whenever these molecules aren't broken down enough, they get into the blood, they are actually attacked. Kind of your body's immune system will attack these compounds and put up little flags, little markers, and say, hey, this is a foreign body, and if any time we eat this, next time we're going to attack it again. So, things like peanuts.
Yeah. And that's where probiotics are essential.
It's all essential. Probiotics are essential. And not only taking the supplements, but primarily just eating good, healthy, organic food, removing processed foods, removing high doses of sugar, and replacing it with highly nutritious food. For a long time, I did a lot of strength and conditioning. I like to work out, and that was kind of a big thing for me. So I was eating a lot, trying to gain weight, trying to gain muscle. I mean, I know that's like kind of a part of that lifestyle and that culture, but I have lost about 20 pounds. I don't really eat as much. I eat more highly, nutritious foods. I do, some intermittent fasting here and there. And I've never been more mentally clear in my life. I'm able to think more clear. I don't have as much brain fog.
You look good,
Not as good as you, pal. But, I just noticed that whenever I was eating a lot, I was always tired. I was always lethargic. I'd have to take a nap in the middle of the day. And now I'm just functioning on a higher level. So it's not only just gaining awareness and consciousness of what you're eating, but it goes back full circle. You're able to do more. You're able to research more whenever you're thinking more clearly. And that just catapults you. If I'm taking a nap, I can't read my book or I can't go and research something. And so just having that mental energy is so crucial and can really lead to other discoveries. So first and foremost, people just need to take care of themselves. And, a great way to flush out toxins, a great way to improve your mental capacity and your overall body's function is to get out and exercise. So that's always going to be my number one thing. I always have been, big on exercise, increasing the body's metabolism, getting an increase in blood flow and distribution of oxygen and other nutrients to the tissues that need it, staying hydrated. I know you're huge on the, hydration and how important water is. And not only water, but the makeup of the water. And, what other constituents are in our water besides, H2O. So it all goes full circle. But whenever it comes to nutrition, I can talk all day about this because it is it. It all starts at the gut. There's been a lot of research that shows the vagus nerve. So like the vagus nerve kind of goes down to the gut and like helps stimulate with mesenteric plexus that kind of controls the digestion of your food and just the whole parasympathetic, sympathetic inhibition stimulation process. What happens sometimes is whenever you get sick or you have a dysbiotic bacterial flora in your gut, there's actually been studies shown that these bacteria can hijack your vagus nerve and send chemical messages retrally back up to the brain, causing you to actually become, I guess you could say, craving certain types of foods. So like bacteria and cancer, they live off sugar. So whenever you're sick, that's why you don't really crave like the good foods, you don't want to, but that's what you need to get better. But like, you're craving that high sugar and it's kind of hard. It's like, all right, where's my free will in this? Because these things are hijacking our brain, but,
And another thing, too, is when people get sick, they take the antibiotics, and that completely wipes out your gut flora as well. So it's just it's killing everything.
Yeah.
You're not feeling well, taking the medication, that's just wiping it out completely, and then you got to work even harder to replenish it.
Yeah. Antibiotics were a great discovery for medicine. They've definitely saved a lot of people's lives, but just like anything else nowadays, they're way overprescribed. You don't need antibiotics for your common cold. You don't need or basic upper respiratory infection. These things will run their course. And then if you are going to take the antibiotics, you got to realize you're wiping out your entire microbiome. So a lot of people will get candida after a regimen of antibiotics, which is a yeast. You can have different types of yeast infections after antibiotics. So a lot of people need to be aware to replenish their system with probiotics and healthy prebiotic foods after taking antibiotics. If you are going to do that, definitely, you have to follow up. You have to do your homework because it's not just a one and done. All right, we got the sickness out of the way, but I'm not living my life just to not be sick. Whenever my heart's, while I'm on this planet, I want my heart to beat as well as it can, as many times as it can. I want my brain to function on the highest level it can. I want to optimize myself. I don't want to...
optimal potential,
Exactly, man. And it's not about just preventing sickness, because that's what a lot of our healthcare system today is built around is, as you know, sick care and not so much healthcare. That's why a lot of the insurance companies don't cover preventative health. We don't cover preventative health. They don't cover wellness plans. That's what's required to have good health. That's what's required for people to not only be healthy, but live the life that they want. That's the main thing. I want to help people reach their dreams. So
it's crazy, too, because they're saying sitting is just as bad as smoking for you now.
Sedentary life is the new smoking.
I mean, that's how those discs in our back get their nutrients. There's no direct blood flow, so you got to start moving around to get your back some nutrients, because if you're sitting still all day, they're just going to dry out like a sponge. You got to get moving to get those... Get the liquid back in there and hydrated.
Exactly. He's talking about imbibition and those proteoglycans in our disc. Definitely love that stuff. So keep it moving. Not only are you going to improve, your mental capacity, but you're going to also improve the longevity of your own body. So a lot of our degeneration that goes on in our spine and in our joints, all over from our knees down to our ankles, shoulders, you name it, it comes from a lack of awareness. I mean, a lot of people might have a predisposition due to genetics for, arthritis or a certain type of autoimmunity that causes degeneration in our joints. But for the most part, it's lifestyle. Everything from what we put into our body to what we do with it, and what, even more importantly, what we do at our jobs. What is our job on a daily basis? Because for many people, it's sitting in front of a computer, hunched over in a chair. You might be in a chair for 8 hours a day. Then you take your car home, ride and commute for 30 minutes to an hour. Then you get home and you sit down and make dinner. And then by that time, you're ready to go, lay down and go to bed and do it again the next day. So a lot of people spend 90% of their day either lying down or sitting down. And it's hard, even as a chiropractor, to kind of reverse that whenever you can go and get adjusted. But if you're going right back to doing what you were doing before, it's going to be really hard for that adjustment to hold and maintain. So that's why, I talk to a lot of my patients, not only about how they can improve their posture, but what exercises, what stretches they can do, what other ways that they can occupationally, kind of improve their situation so that they don't have to keep on coming in and getting adjusted forever, but also, just improving their overall work experience, because I'm tired of the fake I'm doing good. Like whenever you ask somebody how their day's going and you can see it in their eyes that they're in that chronic pain, whether that's actual physical pain or whether it's depression, I'm tired of hearing the same old thing. I'm good. Yeah. It's like, no, tell me how you really are. And then let's go ahead and make the proper steps to, improve that. And if your job is stressing you out, I'm sorry to say it, but use your brain. Our mental capacity and people's abilities go way beyond what they give themselves credit for. So for everybody thinks that they're stuck in a certain position or that they have to have that job, you might financially, but there's also different ways. And if you really push yourself, I just want everybody to be happy. I want people to feel like they're doing something that makes them happy, that they're helping other people, that they're actually having a good impact. So that's a part of what chromatic healing is taking that next step to healthcare, not just, medicine, not just the adjustments, not just the exercise, but referring back to the connection, that connection that we have with each other, the connection that we have with ourselves and to our society, the connection that we have to our future generations and what we're going to leave behind, what legacy we're going to leave for them. And that's stimulating, man. Whenever you feel like you're a part of a huge movement, we're a tribal community. We're very tribal. We are very social beings, humans. So obviously, like you look at different religions and things like that throughout history, we like to band together. We like to be with people that are like-minded, but at the same time, it's important to be with people that are like-minded and pushing towards the future that is sustainable. You know what I'm saying? So not based out of some kind of insecurity or fear, but more evidence-based, more scientific-based. And that's kind of refers back to the psychedelics, because in the 50s, there was a lot of research going on regarding psychedelics, and, that kind of got all shut down as soon as the 60s hit, and people started abusing, different drugs like LSD, because LSD was actually used in psychotherapy for the late 40s and most of the 50s before it became an illegal drug. And there was a lot of potential, a lot of research being put out even back then. And it's amazing to kind of go back and see what these guys were doing even back in those times. And they're trying to help people with schizophrenia, and they're just, and that was one of the original studies that was, LSD was used for, was to work on an addiction recovery and also study schizophrenia. So psychedelics, the word psychedelic was coined by a British doctor. His name was Humphrey Osmond. And that was in 1957, and he was one of the first medical professionals to use LSD for addiction recovery treatment and also for the study of schizophrenia. He actually chose those words, psychedelic, which comes from the two Greek words, psyche, meaning mind, and delos, meaning manifesting. So psychedelic literally means mind manifesting. And as Western doctors and scientists knew very little about psychedelics and how they worked on the human brain, it's kind of a catch-all term that was used and is still used today for psychedelic research. So it's really cool, because I like that word, mind manifesting, because everything is mind manifesting. Everything is psychedelic. Everything is a biochemical what we experience, everything that we take in from our nervous system all the way, from the neurons and the nerve endings on our, fingertips to what we feel, how we feel, what we see, everything is a biochemical compilation that is projected for us to understand. So therefore, everything is psychedelic. Everything is mind manifesting, because these psychedelics, they just act on those biochemical pathways that are already there. They don't put in anything into your body or that isn't you. It simply activates receptors that are already there and causes different processes to take place. Just much like scar tissue after a surgery, your neurons can build fibrotic tissue over the nerve connection. So people that use the same pathways over and over again, it just makes it harder to break those free, because they become almost like a highway. They become the interstate. They become more fibrotic. So it's just harder to break those tendencies. That's why people get caught in the cycles. It's not just a habit, These are biochemical processes that actually, there's anatomy being changed based on the way you think. And we're adaptive beings. We have to be that way. We're animals, so we.
Well, what's interesting too, what got me interested originally is that study you were telling me about with how they were microdosing people with depression, and right. They were giving it to veterans coming back with PTSD and just doing great things with that, because I was battling depression a little bit too. And once I heard you talking about that and showing me the research, I was like, oh wow, there must be something to this.
Right, definitely, man. And there's a lot to it, because civilizations for thousands of years before we even started using science knew the benefits of these rituals. Talked about ayahuasca a little bit already, and San Pedro cactus and the peyote cactus have been used in Native American rituals for a long time. Psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, has been used for a long time, especially all over the world. And if you look back at Mayan culture down in Mexico, they spoke highly of the mushroom. So they were all using these different type of plant medicines in their area to enhance their own experience and gain consciousness and build their connection with their society and their family. It was a very tribal ritual. It's not, people going out and getting obliterated. It's a sacrament, and that's the way it should be. That's part of what our society is missing. We don't have a lot of teachers out here. It's more people just got to figure out things for themselves. We're just not super bonded that way. So whenever we find people that we can bond with like that, and we can kind of have those ceremonies together, it can be life-changing and can lead for the better. And part of that is because some of the drug actually has a half-life that stays in your body for a couple of days, to weeks, depending on the drug afterwards. But there's also that shift in catharsis, that shift in understanding, knowing that you just experienced something mystical and something amazing. And, there's been several studies promoted by the MAPS organization, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. And they're kind of the forefront for psychedelic research. It's where I get a lot of my information from, and I always like to go there first. These guys know a lot more about psychedelics than I ever will, but it's really cool to be in connection with them and, just learning all the new things that are coming out, because they did a study on psilocybin on patients that had never taken magic mushrooms before. I think it was like 80% of the subjects stated that it was in the top 5 most amazing mystical experiences, most spiritual experiences that they had had in their life. And then like the other, 15% said that it was, or 20% said it was the most spiritual experience of their life, So it's really cool. It's turning on you more. Like I said, it'll show you the things that you're dealing with. The people that, kind of wall those memories off, kind of lock them away in the base. They kind of lock them away in the basement. You know what I'm saying? Psychedelics kind of are the flashlight that allows you to kind of go down into the basement and give yourself a hug and tell yourself, I know what you've been through, but try to understand why that person, where they were at, and like why that even happened to you in the first place. So, it gives you empathy for the person that might have hurt you or the situation that might have hurt you. It gives you empathy for yourself so you don't quite feel like the victim anymore. And then all of a sudden you have a new outlook on an old memory. And that's, I
completely agree with that.
That's very powerful. And, the MAPS organization is so cool in the sense that they're trying to get both psilocybin and MDMA, which is active ingredient in ecstasy, which, is a street drug that is very frowned upon as far as, people have had side effects because of other constituents that are in that drug.
Right, and it's the other stuff they put in it that you don't even know.
Exactly. You don't know what you're getting, man. So now we're able to, or at least MAPS is getting the funding to get back to the work, get back to the research and see like, okay, what is this actual molecule whenever when it's put into a human body, what's happening? Well, they look at the blood chemistry, they look at the subjective experience, they look at the diagnostic imaging. And one thing that goes up with MDMA is prolactin and oxytocin. Both these are the bonding and loving hormones, and they build empathy and trust. So it's great for psychotherapy whenever you're with, in that setting with a therapist, because it allows you to kind of let your walls down and let you get to work faster. It's the perfect drug for psychotherapy, and that's what they're trying to implement by 2021. They actually just passed their phase 2 trials for MDMA therapy, psychotherapy for PTSD. And that was a big step. It's really cool. I can send the link over to you guys. But basically, what they did was they got, I want to say it was around 100 patients that were clinically already diagnosed with PTSD. A lot of them were, policemen, soldiers, firefighters, people that, have high stress situations. Not that I firmly believe that we all have some sort of PTSD. It may not be on the same level as somebody coming back from Iraq or a police officer that has to deal with high stress situations every day. But I think that everybody can benefit from talking to somebody about their life, and with or without drugs, just being more mindful and being more aware and kind of looking back instead of always, just pushing things to the side. So what they did was, and the cool thing about these sessions are, this isn't a drug like an SSRI that you take every day. It's not meant to make money. People aren't going to make money off this. This is a thing that you do a session every few months and then you go back. And so what they did was they did 3 sessions, and I think it was spaced out around like a 3-month period. And what happened was after the first session, one of the guys actually dropped out. He's like, hey, he was an alcoholic. He had PTSD from the war. And he said, I no longer need alcohol. I no longer need MDMA. I don't need anything, because he literally was like, I'm good. And he's like, I don't need any more of this. They're like, well, can you at least come back, and give us your testimony so that, even though you're dropping out of the study, we can tell everybody about your experience, because that's awesome, man. And he's like, yeah, he came back at the end of the study, which was like a year later, and still wasn't, he wasn't, they, redid all the different tests that they're using to diagnose people with PTSD, and he no longer qualified, still after a year, after one session, no longer qualified.
That's amazing.
To be diagnosed with PTSD. And that actually, for those that continued with the study, showed very good results. And I don't want to be quoted on a percentage, but it was a very high percentage of the people that just after 3 sessions of psychotherapy with this drug, and same with the psilocybin, which is, like I said, the active ingredient mushrooms, have profound effects. And they're able to get out of body. Whenever you can get out of body, you remove yourself from your vessel. You no longer need substances, because you realize that's just my body. It's not my soul. It's not my mind. One of my favorite quotes is by a philosopher named Descartes, and he says, I think, therefore I am. And the reason that he did that, he's actually doing his own research one day whenever he was at his house. He was looking at the mirror, and he tried to envision himself without a body, and he could do it. His body was gone. And then he looked at the mirror again, and he tried to envision himself without a mind. And he couldn't do that. You can't imagine yourself without a mind. So once you can get out of your body, you realize I no longer need this addiction to whatever people are addicted to, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping, food, whatever. You can break free of that. And so we're not only breaking that mental mentality, but we're also breaking down biochemical processes. We've talked about that fibrotic connection that causes people to have, repetitive loops and get stuck in these routines, and this circuitry behind it. That actually changes, and it allows us to take new pathways. So we're actually breaking down those fibrotic proteins and making new connections in our brain. And that is amazing, because part of what we know about the pharmacology of these drugs and how they act on the brain is they inhibit certain hubs in the brain that are highly active during daily thought. So logical thinking, it's called the default mode network. So like whenever you drive to work and you don't remember how you got there because you're thinking about everything else, that's the logical, rational thinking that's going on. These drugs, psychedelics, actually kind of inhibit that part of the brain and allows for more free range and free thinking in other parts so that you can use more imagination, be more creative, and things like that. So I don't want to spend the whole time talking about psychedelics. I think they're amazing because they allow you to improve your life. And that's what this is about. Exercise can do that as well. Meditation. But
so you're saying it brings you to a certain point and you can get there by using many things, psychedelics being one of them.
Yes. And, you can reach these psychedelic states, with fasting, with meditation, but that takes years and years of experience doing that. Fasting, you don't need to burn down the house just to bake a loaf of bread, you know what I'm saying? So it's almost like if you're raking your leaves in your yard, psychedelics is the leaf blower. It's what allows you to kind of clear out the space a little bit faster. You can do it other ways, but if you're going to have somebody that's never meditated before, they might sit there for 5 or 10 years before it finally hits them and they're able to kind of really get into that. When you take a psychedelic, you've taken a psychedelic, and it's not going to hit you in 5 minutes or 5 years, 10 years. It's right now, and you're going to go on a journey. You're going to go on a trip. It's all about improving your life, improving your outlook on what you're putting in your body, your food, improving how you become more motivated to help others, how you can be more motivated to educate yourself and do research and read, to influence others in a positive way, influence your society in a positive way, to build stronger relationships with the ones that are around you. Anytime you can step out of your situation and step out of the ego and kind of look at your life from a bird's eye view and kind of take a new perspective towards things is a great way to take the next step. Sometimes I like to say you got to take a step back in order to take 2 steps forward. And that's what life is about. And that's a lot of what chromatic healing is about. Like I said, chromatic healing is a organization that I just started, but I didn't want to name it after myself. I wanted chromatic healing. I want it to be something that anybody can be a part of. I want it to be something that anybody could run it. I don't want to always be the one that takes the credit for it, because this is part of a movement. This is what I want it to be. It's a part of a tribe. It's part of a shift in consciousness. It's a part of what our future needs. And, you know as well as I do, the world is looking for a better way to, take care of themselves, and how we can, improve everything from our environment to both internally and externally. How are we going to do that? And chromatic healing for me is my way of extending my reach. And a part of that getting started is going around to different transformational festivals. I'm not going to be working at, chromatic healing is going to be working at these highly transformational festivals. This isn't an electronic daisy festival. This isn't a rave. These are people that go to these festivals to have transformation. There's amazing music. There's guest speakers, philosophical speakers, nutrition speakers. There's healers there. There's meditation. There's yoga. There's connection. And that's what everybody's looking for. So that setting is already transformational. And what we're going to do is bring chiropractic into that. And I'm not the first one to do this, but I definitely want to take it to the next level. And so what we're doing at Chromatic Healing is trying to implement ourselves with as many West Coast festivals as we can right now. And we are currently been accepted into 4 coming up this spring.
That's great, man. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. One of them here is in a couple weeks out in the Mojave Desert. We're going to meet up. It's just over a weekend. I'll be doing some healing there. There's going to be music. It's going to be a very tribal, very family type vibe. And it's out in the, desert. So it's like the clearest night sky on earth. We're going to be staring up at the galaxy, and everybody's going to be boogieing and having a good time. It's going to be good vibes and good energy. I'm really excited for that. But the one I'm really stoked for is Lucidity, because that's actually in our backyard there in Santa Barbara. So it's a big transformational festival in Santa Barbara. It's actually their last year, and they have an actual healing sanctuary that's designated for healers to come there. But there's only a set number of people there that can be accepted. Chromatic Healing was one of the healers that are going to be accepted. So it's going to be an amazing way to not only build connections and help people at the festivals, because, when you've been walking around all day, camping out, you've been dancing all day, your feet get tired, your knees knees, hips, low back, everything kind of gets a little achy. Muscles get achy. It's going to be a type of setting where people can come in, get a quick treatment. It's going to be very, structured. It's not going to be kind of the Wild West feeling. We're still going to get our stuff done. We're going to be having good times, but it's also going to be, we're going to be working hard, and we're going to make sure that it's the type of setting that is healing and not just about, having fun
Absolutely.
Or whatever. So, and another thing is I'm going to have my practice in Santa Barbara as well. So I actually have I did an internship for the last 6 months with Berry Family Chiropractic. They're a husband and wife duo out of Palmer West up in the Bay Area, and they've been in practice for about 15 years in Santa Barbara. And they are going to allow me to rent out some space from them whenever they're not there. So they're only there for a half day on a couple of days a week. So what I'm going to do is whenever they're not there, I'm going to be using that space and using that office. And it's right downtown Santa Barbara. It's a great location. I've been over the last month or two since we've been done with school. I've been just trying to network and build as many connections as I can. Everything from going down to the barber shop and talking to the barber, to my bank, to the cashier at Starbucks. No matter where I'm at, I'm trying to get it out there and just let people know that they have this service available to them, and that they can, be a part of something that's a huge movement. And I'm not saying like we are the movement. We're just one little factor in that. But we definitely want to get launched out of Santa Barbara. And Lucidity is going to be a great place to kind of help catapult that, because already there's about 6,000 or 7,000 people that have registered and bought tickets for this event. And, they're going to come through that healing sanctuary. So we're going to help them there, but we're also going to point them out to where we're going to be outside of the festivals, where they can come and get regular treatment, and then what festivals we're also going to be at in the near future. So Lucidity, we're looking at Lightning in a Bottle and Symbiosis. I've also applied to work the Zendo project, which is ran by MAPS. And that's basically a sanctuary for people to go to whenever they are having an overwhelming psychedelic experience and kind of get calmed down by that we have, psychologists, there's therapists, psychiatrists, different types of specialties all around that are there to kind of diffuse the situation or just show empathy whenever somebody is having an overwhelming experience and help them kind of get back to center and get back out there and groove to the music.
Well, Doss, you're extremely passionate about it. I know you're going to do great things, and I'm really excited looking forward to where this takes you very shortly. You got a lot going for you.
Yeah, it's right around the corner, but I put all my eggs into one big cosmic basket. I feel like, because that's what you got to do. This is all or nothing, man. I've trained my whole life for this, and
plan B, extraction plan A.
Right. I mean, I'm just getting after it, and a lot of it is just networking, and that's all it is for me. It's not just about building a name as a chiropractor. I don't want to have a bunch of labels. I want it to be more about the family and be more about everybody kind of taking that next step for our next generation of this is the make or break point where we need to make these changes, or else, we're going to continue down this wrong road. And this is what has to happen. The world's looking for it, and, everybody's on board. And people are already looking for alternative ways. They don't want to be taking these pharmaceuticals. They're looking for that. So some people just need that guidance, and they can jump on the train, and you're definitely going to be that person and already have been for a lot of people. So I'm super excited for you as well, and honored to call you my friend, man. You are great human just in general. And not only that, you're just a special guy, man. So I'm really excited to see where your career is going to take you, and definitely going to have you out here soon for maybe one of these festivals. And you can come help me out too. I'd definitely love to have you.
Oh, dude, that'd be amazing. And I thought this was a great episode. I think we went over some really interesting stuff that a lot of people haven't heard before.
Yeah. So we're going to have to do it again soon. I'm excited because
absolutely, you're coming back on.
There's a lot to talk about. Maybe we can hit a few other things and stay a little bit more on topic. I know I jumped around a lot, so I appreciate you kind of guiding the whole thing. So you're awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to end this right here, and then we can keep talking. All right?
Right on.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. My private practice is located in New Jersey at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. If you have any additional questions about today's podcast, other episodes, or any questions about Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractic in general, feel free to visit my website at drkevinpecca.com or subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Kevin Pecca. Hope you enjoyed the show. Cheers.